Well, the ANC continues its engagement on its policies ahead of the December elective conference. On issue, the party members don't seem to agree. One issue, rather, that they don't seem to agree on is that contentious step-aside rule. ANC and KZN and Limpopo want the rule to be scrapped completely, but President Cyril Ramaphosa on Friday told party members that resolutions from the party's 54th conference should be implemented. Ramaphosa has also challenged the ANC to come up with solutions to the unemployment crisis. For more, I am joined, or myself and Bradan are joined by political analyst Lihle Ngcobozi. Thank you very much for coming through, Lihle. Just firstly, when you look at this contentious issue, of course we knew that the step-aside resolution that was established during the 54th National Conference would be a huge contention point. But, you know, looking at the ANC, do you think that they'd be able to find another policy that would ensure that people who face corruption charges are dealt with? Because this was the rule that helped them do that.
I think fundamentally the issue is that the ANC has a discipline problem. They don't know how to discipline people that act sort of in an unethical manner, not people who are within the party and also people that have been deployed to government. And so the step-aside rule in some way was supposed to kind of regulate behaviors, and in instances where behaviors cannot be regulated, then it finds ways to remedy that through instituting the process that is part of the step-aside policy, but also going through sort of its integrity channels, right? But we are seeing that the teeth of the policy don't necessarily sink in, and that there's no sense of general rule of application when it comes to how this particular policy is being instituted and against whom and why. And so the credibility of that disciplinary process, and of course then calls into question the credibility of the policy itself, tells us that the discipline crisis in the ANC is not something that they themselves are even able to sort of deal with or manage in a way that benefits not only the party, but also benefits the citizen by virtue of the fact that these people become then deployees in the state. And so the inability to do that is something that I think a lot of South Africans are finding a lot of issue with, that the ANC is really grappling with a discipline problem. And it goes right through, right? We also saw the president of the party, but also the president of the country also embroiled in some sort of scandalous behavior. And even though he was presented at the integrity committee, the teeth of that process, we're not seeing the benefits of it. In many ways, he's been able to evade questions around certain things, and that also calls into question the integrity of not only the policy, but those particular structures in place that are meant to regulate behaviors. And the one thing that we've seen is that you cannot regulate ethics. If people choose to act in an unethical manner, the party cannot in any ways regulate that without sharp and stringent policies, which we're seeing that are failing in this regard. So I think it's contentious insofar as people are assuming that this particular policy is being used within the scope of factionalism within the party, and that is creating very serious divides that are already existing as well, but deepening them because people are now hiding behind this kind of disciplinary process, which we're not seeing, like I've said, the general application of it in a quite in a way that is very much yielding the kinds of benefits that it would want to.
They were hoping for,
And one wonders, Lihle, welcome. How do you sort out discipline in an organization of the size of 600,000 members in good standing, as Khalima Mutlanthe just told us, plus the other 800,000 that nobody knows they're not even in good standing? How do you actually discipline that? You've got an integrity commission. Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa appeared there the other day. On Wednesday, we were told, according to reports from the commission's chair. We're still waiting for their report. But one doesn't get a sense that there's going to be action that's going to be taken by it. Now, you are discussing organizational renewal today. I mean, surely you should put on the table, how do we make sure that we respect ethics or we behave ethically? You should be focusing on those values, isn't it?
But I also think the ANC needs to also deal with its consequence management framework, if it has one. Once these kinds of policies are instituted, whether the kinds of resolutions that become part of the process or the policy conference, how then do you then marry those with the requisite consequent management frameworks that then say, in the event that people transgress or act in an unethical manner, what are the consequences then that we can apply?
This step-aside resolution was supposed to address that. To say if you're charged with a serious offense or crime, and the charges have not been given to you formally appear in court, you must step aside. But some ANC guys are saying, no, you're innocent until you're proven guilty.
But you see, that's the other issue in terms of the policies that they keep announcing or finding in all their policy documents. How does the ANC make sure that the ANC behaves? They obviously cannot. So they have the Integrity Committee, like you're talking about, which is ANC members who are supposed to take to task ANC members. And you see this even on a government level, where there's an ANC minister who is also the chairperson of some governmental organization or organ that is supposed to make sure that the ANC actually governs properly. And that's where I find it to be a problem, along with cadre deployment somewhere in there. Because how do you, if you and I are friends and we're cadres from 19 whatever, how do I make sure, how do we know that I'm going to actually hold you accountable?
But I also think there's a problem with liberation movements then that become sort of part of the state for such a long time that the lines become so blurred between party and state. And even within the cadres themselves and people that have been deployed, the lines between party and state and the requirements of each become fundamentally blurred, and people then don't act in accordance with those two. And so the inability of the government to sort of regulate people's behaviors and also apply the requisite consequences is also seen in the party. And so that's showing us that the relationship between party and state is very much showing us the crisis of not only the state but also the crisis of the party. That then becomes the crisis of the country and the crisis of the citizen. And so when those kinds of things happen in South Africa, we really then need to find ways of sort of delinking that kind of relationship and begin to find the ways in which we can begin to think of state and to think of party and how these two interact in a way that is beneficial to the citizen and, of course, beneficial to the electorate if they find resonance with the party.
Yeah, I think those blurred lines are there. I mean, they're so clear to see. And one of the ways we've heard some commentators say to address this is to professionalize the public service. Example, a DG of a department must not be a political party deployee. Must be a professional, if there is such a thing, bureaucrat, or must be a technocrat who understands that sector very well and is running that department as a CEO would run a company. Come elections in 2024, you still DG, a new minister comes in, you carry on being DG. But because of those lines that are blurred, a new minister comes and says, no, I'm taking my comrade with me to be DG. Then the challenge is the blurring continues more
and the separation of power is then in danger.
Definitely. But I also think the ANC has a problem of that. Over the years, it hasn't built a strong enough professional layer within the party itself. So even within the branches, there are no individuals that are coming up to sort of be sort of the professional layer that then becomes deployed into government. If deployment worked and it worked accurately, the people would be coming within the ranks who have the sort of requisite skills to do that, and the ANC would be upskilling its own members of branches to be able then to take those key positions. But the thing about cadre deployment is that we are seeing that people that don't have the requisite skills are being deployed into key state institutions, and then we're seeing the financial draining that's happening within the institutions because of kind of the malfeasance behaviors as well as sort of the patronage and client networks that exist within them.
Lihle, you're still with us for the next hour, so I understand we'll continue. We'll unpack a different angle to this. There's so much to speak about, but I think you make a very point. The ANC cannot discipline its members. It's very clear. They're battling to do so. Thank you very much. That's Lihle Ngcobozi. She's with us here, myself and Masiho Rahlaga at Nasrec on ENC DSTV channel 43.